Welcome back on the Inspire stage. Welcome back to all of you that are following us through the live stream. I hope you enjoyed some coffee and you could also network a little bit even online. Okay, we are ready for another panel here on the main stage. And this time we have Amy Guttman as our moderator. She's an American broadcast journalist at Forbes at the moment, and she's based in London. And in the panel, they will talk about what we think about mobility and green transport. She's got 3 inspiring guests. First one is Adam Jafer, co-founder and tech lead at Voy Technology. We also have David Nothacker, co-founder and CEO of sennder, and we also have Jennifer Jacob Dungs, who's global head of mobility at InnoEnergy. And Adam and David are both co-founders of European unicorns. So I'm very curious what those unicorns think and what their vision is on mobility. Please give our moderator and our guests a warm applause to welcome them.
Good morning and welcome to this talk about the future of mobility and how to keep it sustainable and green. I'd like to welcome my panelists here, David Nothacker from sennder, which is like an Uber for the trucking industry, connecting the Coca-Colas of the world with small trucking companies. Then we have Jennifer Dungs, who's global head of mobility at EIT InnoEnergy, and then Adam Jafer, who is co-founder of Voy Technologies, which of course we know is the scooter company. I'd like to start with a couple of compelling statistics that are relevant to our talk today. The World Economic Forum estimates that by 2030, so less than 10 years from now, urban last-mile delivery emissions are set to rise by 30% in 100 cities globally. In addition to that, commuting time will also be heavily impacted by the rise of e-commerce, with estimates of traffic increasing by 21% during commuter hours. So lots of pain points to get into here. And the main question that springs to mind is, so if we're all ordering more stuff, and we're all trying to inhabit the 15-minute city and hypermobility, how do we move all this stuff, and how do we move all the people? So if we start with the people first, Adam and Jennifer, I'm hoping you can weigh in here. How do we make some of the current hypermobility solutions that we're seeing, i.e. scooters, more sustainable, greener, but also more inclusive and accessible?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I'm definitely seeing kind of a rise of kind of last mile delivery of anything, whether it's either people moving or kind of delivery of goods, pharmaceuticals, groceries, kind of this quick commerce rise. And I've also seen myself when I've been kind of out in the field on the market, seeing some of these delivery guys with kind of very suboptimal solutions, this kind of old bad bikes, and they're stacking batteries on top of each other, duct taped together. And so I think, up to some of the mobility companies such as Voy that are experts in this space could definitely look into kind of what would be the use case for that type of delivery, where it's different to the consumer that's maybe traveling 1 to 3 kilometers. For the delivery guys, it would be more, different ergonomics. They probably need to sit down. They're riding these things kind of all day. But kind of inclusivity has been part of our service design from day one. We last year partnered with a company to attach an apparatus to any manual wheelchair to give it kind of electric power. Equity is also very important, and kind of, the goal is to kind of democratize the usage of micromobility. We also offer different pricing packages to low-income groups, and these are just a few of the examples of some of the things we do to offer micromobility to the masses.
And Jennifer, you're investing in companies that straddle both areas, both pain points. So weigh in for us about some of the companies and what they're doing.
Yeah, I think you hit on a very important point, which is that both with the movement of people and the movement of goods, there's a number of different use cases that need to be designed for, because at the end of the day, when you're talking about moving goods, it's about efficiency. So drops per hour. That's going to be a different vehicle for many different use cases. What Adam just said, if you're delivering a pizza versus you're delivering groceries, or you're delivering your kids to the school, you need a different form factor. And so actually in the last 2.5 years, because of this hyper-local mobility, because of this increase in e-commerce that has been accelerated due to COVID, we've invested in 9 different form factors, and we're looking for more, because actually we believe that it's going to be a mix of those to really get the efficiency. And just one other point, what's important to us is what kind of impact this would have, also on sustainability. And we recently published this white paper where we said if just a portion of the trips were done, so like less than 10%, with these form factors, it could save 30 million tons of CO2. And right now we have a gap trying to reach the Fit for 55 of 165, because electric cars are not the end game here. So we need to actually transform the whole mobility system, longer distances like what sender's doing, but also then in the last mile.
And I'd love to get your take, both of you, on some of the areas that we talk less about. So we hear so much about urban areas and solutions for urban environments, but what about the areas that we rarely discuss? So what about suburban areas that are densely populated and densely trafficked? And what about rural areas? And David, please feel free to jump in if you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, it's always kind of approaching, when we're launching a new city, kind of we do it in the same way with every city, which is kind of approaching with an open dialogue to understand the needs of the city. And our mindset from day one has always been kind of, partly pro-regulation, but also understanding the city needs and kind of asking for permission and not for forgiveness. And then we also, not only the cities, but at the end of the day, it's a consumer product that we're offering. So we want to put the consumer's needs first, and we will put vehicles where there is demand and where it makes sense for the consumer. So maybe in terms of if there's a small village out there with 2,000 people, it might not make sense. But it's also something that we've been trialing with, partnering with public transport, for example, to put vehicles a bit outside of the cities as well, so in like suburban areas, because the service is very much a complement to public transport as well. We've actually seen that research has shown that the usage of micromobility also increases the usage of public transport as well. So they very much go hand in hand.
Okay, thank you both. Oh, sorry, Jennifer.
I'll just say maybe one point, because changing people's behavior with mobility is absolutely one of the most difficult things there is to do, because we all are comfort creatures. We all have what we're used to, and when the sort of charm, I think, of going to these suburban areas or these rural areas is that they're not so crowded today like some of our bigger cities are with all these solutions. People get overwhelmed, and you can actually then spend the time with the people that are in the cities and really tailor the solution for what their needs are. And we're working on a couple different projects, one in upstate New York, 20,000 people. And we really try to understand who are the people that need to move and what kind of form factors and what kind of needs do they have, and it's really being pulled from them. And I think then that's another different type of opportunity that's out there that we should.
So cutting through the layers. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of that. Now, David, that's how we're going to move people better. But what about all this stuff we need to move around? And I love the concept of an Uber for the trucking industry. It just makes so much sense to me.
Absolutely. On the last mile in the cities, we're used to faster, more convenient deliveries. And the supply chain starts much earlier. And the supply chains are broken. Those of you who live in the UK might remember, end of last year, no fuel and fuel station, and not all the goods in the supermarket for the first time. And this shows just how inefficient and broken this industry is. Just to give you a couple of more statistics. Today, 24% of all trucks that you see on your highway travel empty, completely empty. mostly because information asymmetry. It's a highly fragmented market. 70% of all trucks are owned by companies that have fewer than 10 trucks. And having them connected without technology or proper technology to the right Coca-Colas is extremely inefficient. And this is where we come in. And I think that the industry still has the worst ahead. I think what we saw in the UK is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to see the same in continental Europe. Fun fact, in the UK, a truck driver today makes more as a salary than a British Airways pilot.
Wow.
And this just shows how broken the industry is and how much we have to change and digitalize this industry.
And of course, solutions like sennder are crucial in minimizing the excess on the roads, because if you have these trucks traveling empty. But also, Jafer, you've got a company in your portfolio, I think it's called Ducktrain. Maybe you can explain to us a little bit about that, because that seems to sort of connect with this idea.
That one's a little bit more last mile, focused more on the autonomy of everything. But I think what I think is so unique about what David and sennder is doing is that in this space, the margins are going to continue to be squeezed. Yeah, why? Because none of us want to pay for shipping anymore. And by the way, we all want it today and maybe in 1 hour, right? So this whole trend is just making this work even more difficult. So by optimizing all the way up the value chain, what they're focused on, I think, is actually the only way to do that. So what they're doing, and then you piece together last mile, but then of course we also need to add in shipping.
Well, this is it. So how do we create not only sustainable solutions in terms of the environment, but yes, in terms of operational costs? Because you're right, everyone wants it for free, everyone wants it tomorrow, if not today. So what are some of the technologies that are either being employed currently or that you all envision could be employed, or deployed rather, in the short to medium future to address both of these? And I think that's where we'll stop after that and ask for some questions.
Well, in trucking, electrification is the next big thing. The first electrical trucks will hit the roads, the big ones, at the beginning of next year. And it's going to be, I think, for the environment, a big step up, but there's a lot of challenges that come with that. An electrical truck will cost 4 to 5 times as much as a diesel truck. And I mentioned earlier that 70% of all trucks are owned by small companies. Why would this company with 4 or 5 trucks buy a 5th or 6th truck that is worth as much as all of their current fleet? And this is where a lot of innovation has to come in, new models to distribute these and push adoptions, build the infrastructure that is needed behind that. So I think that's the next big challenge and opportunity that we have ahead of us in logistics.
Okay. And Jafer?
Yeah, I always have this picture in my mind of maybe 10 years ago of uncooked spaghetti, where these spaghettis are all individual, and that was energy, that was mobility in the form of passenger cars. Everything was very singular at that time, and now we really see everything is kind of like cooked spaghetti, where the solutions from Voi are integrating with public it's integrating into this larger ecosystem. Or if you take last mile logistics, it's going all the way up and down the value chain, or like with Voi as well, recycling at the end game, and where do the materials come from? It's this whole kind of connected thing, and I think we need to exploit sort of the synergies along the entire value chain. And maybe the last point that I would say connected to that is that I would have the preference that we do a lot of this work in Europe, right? So we don't want to just be the users of stuff. We actually should also be part of the supply chain and in the value chain going up and down.
Adam, any last thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great point you make there, especially very relevant in time for us as well. I think the first few years was very much about kind of operational efficiency, and one thing that was a real game changer for us was the introduction of swappable batteries. So instead of having to bring in every single scooter into a warehouse, charge them, and then put them back out again, you suddenly have operations people on electric cargo bikes instead that just go out in the field and swap the batteries. But I think you make a great point as well about kind of bringing it to Europe. If we're looking at on on an emissions level as well, a lot of it is in production as well. So even if we do reach carbon neutrality within a city on an operations level, there's still kind of the issue of production. I think long term, we want to move a lot of, especially battery production, to Europe as well. And it's actually something that we're trialing today in Denmark, where we are trialing producing a small batch of batteries in Denmark as of today to take kind of the first steps moving in that direction long term.
Excellent. Thank you all for your insights. Are there any questions from the audience? No question.
Maybe just on the battery topic. I mean, this is, I think, so fascinating what has happened here in just the last less than 5 years, really. I mean, since 2019, with the investment of Northvolt. We were one of the first investors in Northvolt that's making the green battery production in Sweden. Then comes Faircore, another green battery production out of France. Then another company from Eastern Europe, 11ES with the LFP batteries. And then all around that is then the value chain. Where are we getting the raw materials? And then there's more and more raw material projects popping up to support this. And I think that's exactly the direction that we need to go in. And also what you say, see what elements of production can be done more locally to also offset the CO2 from transportation.
Right. And I think, too, this goes back to a very simple concept, but I'm always reminded of Switzerland when I'm thinking about how to make urban areas more efficient. And I think Swiss cities are a model for this, with everything being so synchronized, from the metros to the trains, especially, sort of the last train home. There's always synchronization, so that you know that when you get off at that last stop, the train is going to be there, or in fact will wait there. Should the unlikely eventuality be that your previous connection is a little bit late, the train does wait for that connection, instead of, I know in London, even in 2022, the number of times you arrive at the station, you need to jump across the platform, and it just takes off. It doesn't even wait. And for me, this feels like really simple stuff. This doesn't seem to demand high technology to create better synchronization, which of course then encourages more people to travel this way. So it does sound like it's going to take a lot of things, high tech, maybe less high tech, and solutions that, yes, speak to operational costs as well as sustainability, but also really usability and accessibility. So thank you all for your comments, and thanks so much to our audience.